I did see that you guys did talk to Troy Weaver. I believe it was Friday morning.
Yes.
What were your takeaways from his press conference? Was there anything that like really stood out?
Several things stood out to me like a sore thumb. The first one was Troy was very honest about some things that I wouldn't have expected a GM to be honest about. And the first one is that he alluded to they had better offers last year for Bojan Bogdanovic and Alec Burks. And he said his rationale behind that was that, when they go into the summer, that people may have been saying that this team needed some veterans. And it's true, they would have needed some veterans. But at the same time, I mean, Burks and Bogdanovic is as good of a players that they are. They were getting up there in age. And, I believe that there could have been a possibility for the Pistons to still add veteran talent in free agency while getting slightly younger than, the other side of 30. So I was shocked to hear him admit that they had better offers on the table. The second thing that really shocked me was how honest he was about the Killian Hayes release. He said, on top of it saying that it was a numbers game, he said the reason that Killian did not work here was something that a lot of people have said on social media for a long time. It was the shooting. But I think the real thing that, even though Troy said that he wished Killian well wherever he goes, the fact that he said that he talked to Killian about his shooting ad nauseum, those were his words. He said he talked to Killian Hayes ad nauseum about improving his shooting. And in 4 years, he didn't shoot above 30% from three-point. And just this season, it was his first season of shooting above 40% from the field. That's an indictment on, like you can say that's an indictment on Troy, but it's really a big indictment on Killian for that to be communicated to him. And there was no real no signs of improvement. So those are the two things that really stood out to me. Like I said, the honesty, and then the honesty about those situations. Yeah.
I've always had a take about Killian, and like a lot of people associate me with being like the number one Killian Hayes hater. Like I guess I'm the president of the fan club. But I never hated the guy. I just critiqued him from afar. Like when I looked at Killian, it seemed like he plays basketball, but he doesn't love the game. In a sense, where like you said, Troy told him to work on his shooting at nauseum. If you know that's a weakness of your game, like coming out of the draft, Jaden Ivey wasn't known as a 3-point shooter, but lately he's shooting like damn near close to 40% from three. I mean, he's hitting some really tough, 3-point shots. And Jaden Ivey's only in his second year, and Killian's going into his like fourth or fifth season. I can't even keep count, maybe fourth season, but just from afar, it's always seemed like Killian is good enough to play basketball, but he's not like a gym rat. Like he's not, putting in extra reps after practice. That's just been my stance. Obviously, I'm not credentialed like yourself, but am I like far off with that take?
Well, I won't say you're far off with that take, because that's what Troy Weaver said. Troy Weaver verbatim said that Jaden Ivey worked on his shooting. Jaden Ivey went from 34% last year beyond the arc to right now he's 37% for this season. Marcus Sasser, I mean, he's a rookie, but they drafted him because he's a guy that shoots well and provides spacing, and he's continuing to work on his shot. He gave another example of Marcus Smart, of a guy who didn't come into the league as a really good shooter, and he continued to work on his shooting work on his shooting along with his overall defensive game. Killian just didn't work on it. So if the general manager, who was able to be in the closed practice, because again, we see the practice, we go talk to these guys after practice. We still see them working in the gym on some stuff. We talk to them after practice. when you see Jaded in there continuously working on his shot and all those guys, and then you kind of the GM saying these things, there has to be some merit to it. Troy said these things verbatim on Friday. Yeah. So you're not far off if the GM said it.
It's his body language. Like, I remember going to a game last year, and Jaden Ivey was the first one out of the tunnel. It was like pregame. It was like maybe an hour before tip-off, and he's the only one out there. He's working on like dribbling drills, shooting drills, defensive drills. I'm like, this kid's gonna be great. And like, I don't really see that same type of commitment from other guys. So like, when I watched Killian, I was really high on him coming out of the draft. And a lot of people tell you that have, been subscribed to this podcast for over 4 years. I was really high on him. I like the potential, but I just didn't see that same type of commitment, I guess, is where I'm going with it.
Yeah. I didn't, at least from what I've seen after practice, I've seen Killian work on some stuff, but I will say I've seen Jaden Ivey out there a lot more. Again, I don't want to get into Kory said Killian didn't work on the shot. No,
you can blame me.
Going off, yeah, just going off of what I've seen and going off of what Troy was able to say, because Troy was able to be in there in those close practices.
To me, I think it was probably really hard for Troy to actually say that, because that was his first draft pick.
Absolutely.
I mean, I was looking back. He said I was scouting Killian since he was 16 years old. So, I mean, I know the COVID year was really like weird for a lot of GMs, but to have your first draft pick not even be traded, and you had to basically waive him like last minute, I think kind of speaks volumes to what Killian was as a player in his time at Detroit. I thought he had every opportunity to get better. He didn't really have too many guys in front of him. I mean, he had mentors like DeLon Wright and Derrick Rose, and some really good vets. I mean, it's kind of sad to see him leave, but I think he'll get an opportunity elsewhere. I'm sure there'll be teams to look to sign him over the next couple of days. I mean, wish him well, but just want to say I don't hate the guy. Just critique this game. Some people, it's like, dude, you hate on him every week. It's like, I don't hate on him. It's just I wish you would take it more seriously.
I mean, again, I'm not going to sit up here and say that he is a bad basketball player, because we've seen flashes of Killian Hayes having some very solid to even borderline impressive moments, but it's been 4 years, and it's almost as if it's been a straight line. It's just been stagnant. There hasn't been a substantial growth in one area, and as good of a defender as he can be, he very much so hindered the potential of that offense, and especially their spacing. And I believe that it had to have been hard for Troy, because that was a guy that he was the second point guard taken that draft, because I believe LaMelo was the first, if I'm not mistaken. So he was the second point guard taken in that draft, and you also took him over a guy that is now a two-time NBA All-Star in Tyrese Halliburton, a guy that I spoke to personally who thought that he was coming to Detroit. Yeah. So having to pull the plug on a project that on your first draft pick as GM, having to pull the plug on him, and you can't even offer him a rookie extension. Yeah, that's gotta hurt.
Yeah, I think we're talking on Facebook. I told you when I was talking to James last month, he had said that the Pistons offered him a rookie extension, but they were really far off on, like, I guess, a price point. The fact that he turned down NBA money is kind of wild to me. Even if it is a vet's minimum, it's a vet's minimum at the end of the day. But I mean, I wish him well. I know it was probably really hard for Troy to like openly admit, like, hey, I told him to work on his shooting and he just didn't. So, I mean, he gave him every chance to be great, and he just didn't take it seriously. But like I said, again, I do wish him well.